Welcome to the Resume Building Masterclass. I am your instructor, Sierra Stroman. Some of you know me already, but in case you don't, I wear a couple of hats. I'm a cybersecurity specialist. I'm a cybersecurity instructor. I'm an advisory board member, a career ambassador, a resume writer. Aside from working in cybersecurity, I've been writing resumes for about 6 years across various different industries, but my bread and butter is cybersecurity. For this course, like I said, this is a 4-week live training. It's designed to help you transform your resume with the help of me. In this program, we're going to walk through crafting your professional summary, translating your experience, align your resume with job descriptions and ATS systems. We are going to help you build portfolios and format your resume for today's job market. Over the past 6 years, I have helped dozens of professionals transition into new roles, career fields, so on and so forth. So I do have a bit of experience in resume transformations. Oops, sorry guys. Like I said, this is a 4-week course. This week we are going to go through resume fundamentals. Next week we're going to be doing summaries, creating summaries. The third week we're going to go over the CCAR method, and then the fourth week we're going to talk about ATS systems. As far as each session, we're going to spend about 15 to 20 minutes doing lecture. We will have live writing demonstrations, different exercises. There won't be necessarily any homework per se, but it's more so going to be like in-class participation. And then we will have Q&A at the end of every single session. So if you guys have questions, like I said, you can post them in the channel or in the chat. Or if you want to wait to ask your question verbally, you can do that as well. At the end of the course completion, so 3 weeks from now, you guys will receive resume templates, a resume checklist, and a custom ATS implementation guide. This implementation guide is something that I've written myself. No one has seen it, and I've written it specifically for this class, so you guys will be getting exclusive ATS resources. By the end of this course, you'll be able to identify the structure of a competitive resume, be able to write an engaging summary that markets your value. Using action verbs, quantifiable results, you'll be able to tailor your your resume for specific job postings because we know how important that is. And you will also be able to navigate all of the common ATS systems. All right, so let's hop into week 1. So the biggest piece of resume writing is going to be applicant tracking systems. On average, I would say all major companies use about 10 to 12 different common ATS systems. All of those ATS systems are built differently in terms of architecture. A lot of the components are the same, like resume submission and parsing and things like that. But how they actually work on the back end, they're all completely different. For example, Lever. Lever is a common ATS system. On the back end of Lever, let's say you applied for 3 different jobs and each job has the same title or similar titles. Lever on the back end of every application that you submit, they are kind of building a custom profile for you as a candidate. So even though you've applied for 3 different companies, you have an internal profile with Lever like standalone. And they are tracking different changes in your resume from ABC company. They're tracking how your job titles change per resume submission. They're tracking the different years of experience, certifications that you list, so on and so forth. And they're building an internal profile for you so that no matter what job you're applying for, they essentially are building a score for you, how you rank, against other candidates. So it gets very deep and detailed with ATS systems. So I want to do a small, simple exercise. I want you all to grab your most recent resume. If you don't have a most recent resume, that's okay. Just in your head, think about your most recent work history. I want you guys to identify how long your resume is, if your summary shows your value as a candidate, and if your bullet points of your resume shows measurable or actionable results. And then once you highlight those things, and I'll give you guys about 5 or 10 minutes. Once you highlight those things, I want you to write down 3 things that you like about your current resume and 3 things that you want to improve. And you don't have to get on the mic and share if you don't want to, but just write them in the comments, just so that, we can collaborate and talk about it. And just to give you guys some insight, as far as length of resume, My rule of thumb, if I'm writing my own or writing a resume for someone else, I try to keep the resume no longer than 2 pages. Once it gets past 2 pages, and this is going to depend also on where you are in your career. But once you get past 2 pages, recruiters and hiring managers typically are not looking, past that threshold. You only get about, and this calculation varies. You'll hear people say 30 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever. You're getting less than a minute of them looking at your actual resume. So you want to make sure that you are maximizing the time that they have eyes on your resume. If it's 3, 4, 5 pages, they're typically not going to get to the bottom of it. They're going to skim through and make a decision from there. So you want to make sure that the information that you have is no more than 2 pages. And to keep it no more than 2 pages was something that I always do. If I add a new job, or let's say I have a lot of volunteer experience on my resume as well. Anytime I go to add something, I'm taking something off. Whatever is the oldest piece of information, I'm taking that off. So my rule of thumb is no more than 5 years of work history on the resume, and then no more than 2 pages. And as far as the summary goes, your summary, I say, should be no longer than 3 to 5 pages, or sorry, 3 to 5 sentences. You don't want it to be super long. Reason being is your summary should highlight you as a professional. I like to say that it is the trailer to the movie of your career. So you want to make sure that you are maximizing that level of detail in your summary, and it's supposed to entice and capture the attention of the recruiter or the hiring manager or whoever is looking at your resume. So you want to make sure that that summary is powerful. I don't like to include tools or certifications or anything like that in the summary. You want to let that information live in other parts of your resume. Your summary should be solely about you as a professional and the skill set that you're bringing to, your next position. And then bullet points. A lot of people will say like, oh, you should have a bullet point with like quantifiable data in every single bullet point. I don't believe that. I believe you should have at least one per role, but not necessarily one in every single bullet point. I feel like it can just be unnecessary, and then you're trying to quantify everything, and not everything can be quantified. So that is the 3 pieces of advice I would say for the length, your summary, and your bullet points. Is anyone wanting to come on the mic and talk about what they've identified from the resume? And again, no pressure. You can type it in the chat as well. Any takers? Do you want to talk about my resume? Right now, my resume I haven't updated it in a little while, but um, okay, so your resume is 3 pages long. You feel like your summary is vague. Um, do you feel like it doesn't capture the essence of your skill set, or do you feel like it's just kind of just like a placeholder? Okay. And that's common. I have seen that across. Honestly, there's only been a few exceptions to resumes that I've reviewed in the past 6 years that I've seen like crafted summaries. A lot of people, they'll put the same, like, oh, I'm a IT professional, looking to excel in, blah, 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 enterprise system, so on and so forth. So it is easy to just kind of put something, but that's the first thing that recruiters and hiring managers are going to read, other than your name, your contact information, blah, blah, blah. Right under that should be your professional summary. So that is going to be, like I said, the trailer to your movie. So you want to make sure that that summary is as detailed as possible, and it kind of, like I said, it kind of draws them in. You want to make sure that it grabs the attention. And I will, as the class goes on, I will show you guys examples of resumes and summaries and different things like that. But that would be my piece of advice. And a couple of years ago, I attended this webinar, and this lady, I cannot remember her name, but she's like a CISO, very established in her career. She would do like career workshops. And I remember sitting in one, and she had a formula for how she writes her summaries. And she said, essentially, she takes one thing about herself. So it could be something personal, it could be something professional. She focuses on the specific job that she's seeking. So, in her case, she's a cybersecurity executive. So her summary would be leadership focus and, or organizational efficiency and, budgets and things like that. If you were an IT professional, you want to focus your summary on IT operational efficiency, um, SOP writing. You want to focus on end user, one call resolution, so on and so forth. If you're a GRC professional, you want to focus on risk management and you want to focus on compliance adherence and audit profiling, all those different things. So based on what your job title is or the job you're seeking, because remember, we write resumes for the job we want, not the jobs we've had. So based on the title or the specific, niche that you're seeking, you want to make sure that you're bringing in those buzzwords as well, which also ties, back into the ATS systems. Um, your resume length is 1 page. 1 page is okay. And I've seen some people also, if they don't have a lot to put on the resume, they try to like stretch the resume to 2 pages. You don't have to do that. For many years, I had a 1 pager and it worked. As time went on and I gained more experience, then I added on a page and a half, 2 page, so on and so forth. So if all you have fits on 1 page, that's okay. You just need to make sure that 1 page is as detailed as possible. It highlights, the story of your work experience, so on and so forth. So there's nothing wrong with having a 1 pager. It just needs to highlight what, your resume and your experience. And you said your current job is unique. And that's something else. I'll talk about it in detail in later sessions, but I often see people will have either unique jobs, like job functions, or they will have unique job titles. And you'll see that also in like FANG companies, for example. I don't know what the specific title is, but let's just say you worked at Apple and you were a product developer. More than likely your title is not going to be product developer. It might be like product evangelist or, something fancy, which is great for internal positions. It's great internally. But if you were to put product evangelist on your resume and try to get another product developer position, that job title is not getting any hits. Nobody uses that job title. So when you go to put your resume in the ATS system, it's not going to match. Um, and a lot of people end up having that issue. And they're like, well, I've got 6 years of experience as a product developer. Why can't I get a job? Why can't I get another job? Why can't I get an interview? It's because nobody's looking for a product evangelist. They're looking for a product developer. And so that's why keywords are super important and having specific job titles are super important. Um, if you have to change it, that's okay. I tell people all the time, you can change the job title to fit the market. You just should not change the job, if that makes sense. There's two things I tell people not to ever stretch, and that is the length of employment, and that is the actual employment. Because when it comes to background checks, those are the two things that they check. If you work there and how long you work there, if the dates of your actual employment on your resume match the dates of employment from the background check. So that's my rule of thumb. You can change the job title as long as it makes sense. Um, and I say makes sense, like we often see companies, especially nowadays with the job market, you often see people doing 2 or 3 jobs, but they have one job title. Well, how do they, how can they express that, hey, even though my job title says system administrator, I was also, a security engineer, or I did this, or I did that. And this also circles back into tailoring your resume for each job that you've applied for. If you've done 2 or 3 jobs, then you need to showcase that you've done 2 or 3 jobs. Don't just copy and paste the job description onto your resume that the company has given you. Sometimes you have to make your own when you have a custom job or a unique position. And if the job experience you have relating to the job you're applying for is all the way in 2008, what do you do? Since the resume should be not. So general rule of thumb is no longer than 5 years. If you have a situation like that where you've been in a position for a long time, definitely show that history. One, because you want to get the credit for the years of experience you have, but also two, jobs like to see that longevity, especially in a market where we often now see people staying in roles for 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, so on and so forth. Jobs still like to see that longevity. So if you've been in a job for 10 plus years, definitely show that. Especially if that's your most recent role as well. The rule of thumb, the 5-year rule of thumb only counts if you have additional work history past that. For example, I wrote a resume for one of my clients a couple of months ago, and they had been a business owner for the last 10 years. So because that was their most recent role and it's past 5 years, I went back retroactively and I added positions that they had beforehand to supplement that work history because that's one position. That's not going to even a one pager, that's not going to fill it. So it just depends on the circumstance, but it's flexible if it needs to be. It's just if you have had additional roles past that 5 years, that's usually the cutoff mark. Like right now, I think on my resume, the oldest job is from 2020. It started in 2020 and it ended in 2021. So that's the oldest job that I have on my resume right now. Does that make sense? And does anybody else have any want to talk about the three things that they highlighted about their resume? If you're not quite ready yet, that's fine. You can just put in the comments and we'll go back to it. Okay, let's continue. So, oh, well, we talked about that already. We'll skip that. Okay, so these are just some key terms to know. I'm sure most of you guys, if not all of you guys, already are familiar with these terms, but if not, I just wanted to give you some key terms to highlight because you will see these often, especially during like the application process and so on and so forth. And I want you guys to be able to navigate this easier. Like I said, the goal of this class is to equip you with the basics so that you guys can go and write your own resumes and make adjustments on the fly and be able to, score more interviews and jobs. So you all know about ATS. If you don't, it's the applicant tracking system. I mentioned earlier in the class, there are about 10 to 12 major ATS systems that are used. There are dozens more, but in terms of like major companies, there are about 10 to 12. They all have different architecture, like behind the scenes operations, but the core functions of the ATS system is the resume submission, the resume parsing, the analyzation of the resume. And then once all the resumes have been analyzed, on the recruiter side, they have a dashboard, and that's where they are able to actually screen candidates in a human lens and pick candidates for interviews. So it's a multi-part process. On our end as candidates, we only see the resume submission part, but on the back end, there's additional pieces that go from submission to interview. So that is essentially the basis of the ATS system. We all know what keywords are. We all know what core competencies are, action verbs, so on and so forth. Fun fact, recruiters spend an average, like I said, this is average based on a set of statistics, 6 to 8 seconds scanning a resume before deciding that they want to read more. That's why that summary is important. Like I said, it is the trailer of the movie of your career. And so just to summarize, your resume is your story. It should highlight who you are, what you've done, where you're headed, and what you've accomplished. Your summary is your hook or your trailer. It should entice the reader, recruiter, hiring manager to want to read more about your personal skill set. And it is also your elevator pitch on paper. Something I always tell people, when you are in the interview process, your elevator pitch or your tell me about yourself speech should be similar to the professional summary listed on your resume, but it should not be exact. You want to give it some type of personalization when you are actually vocalizing it instead of just sounding like you're reading off of your a piece of paper. Unfortunately, and this is this is something that people like to debate about, but for me, it's non-negotiable. Tailoring your resume is non-negotiable. Even if you've gotten your resume written by someone professionally, you still need to make adjustments. That's another reason why I tell people when you're writing your resume or getting it written by someone, you need to make sure you have a Word copy that you can keep as a master copy. And then when you go to make a tailored version for a specific job, you need to make a copy of that one, just so that you're not constantly making edits. Tailoring is non-negotiable. You can apply for 10 different jobs at 10 different ATS systems with one resume, and you're not going to get an interview at every single job because they're all built differently. Every ATS system is different. They all look for certain things. Now, like I said, the basics are the same, but the unique factors make them completely different. So you must tailor your resume. That's another reason why you guys are going to get that ATS guide, because I have done the legwork of walking through the documentation that builds these systems. I've taken notes. It's like 50 pages long. I've taken notes and I've highlighted what are the key differences of these ATS systems. so that you guys can use that as a reference when making adjustments. And the reason why you want to use it as a reference is because a lot of companies nowadays, let's say you apply externally to, I don't know, Facebook. You go on Facebook career page and you hit apply. 9 times out of 10, and I'm using Facebook as an example, but you can honestly say this for any company. 9 times out of 10, it's either going to redirect you to their external site that they have embedded with the ATS system. So you'll see like company name .workday or company name .talio or company name .lever. That shows you what ATS system is being used for that job. Then you can go in the ATS guide and say, okay, well, it's lever. Go to the pages that highlight the information about lever and make those adjustments before you apply so that you can help maximize your chance of getting an interview. It is not, like I said, it's not a one size fits all. You can apply for 50. That's another reason why I tell people don't spray and pray. I call it spraying and praying. Don't sit here and apply for 300 jobs with one resume. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. They're all different. They're all looking for different things, so on and so forth. You want to align your resume with each job description that you apply for. Is it tedious? Yes, it is. It is very tedious. I'm not going to lie, but it helps you with your chances of candidacy. So that is my tip. You want to make sure you are tailoring for each specific job. All right. During this course, you do have a couple of different options in terms of getting in contact with me. If it is something course specific, you are able to email me at my Kyora IQ email address. You are also able to book like one-on-one consultations directly through the Kyora IQ app for guidance. And if you want to work with me on the back end for resume services, interview prep, whatever it is, you are also able to book through my website. I'm going to take a quick second and put all that contact information in the chat so you guys can copy it. The only thing that I ask is that you do not book any resume consultations or writing services until at least after week 3 of the class. And the reason being is I've put a lot of information into the next 3 weeks, and I want to make sure you guys are able to get that information first before making a determination if you need additional help. So in theory, I'm trying to save you money because it might be something that you guys, want to do on your own. Obviously, if you're still adamant about, this is great, I learned a lot, but I still want a professional to, walk me through it or do it for me, I'm more than happy to do so. So like I said, I will paste my contact information in the chat. That is my email. You guys are always able to reach out to me for any concerns, questions, comments. And then as far as my website, which is Access Security Solutions, for those who do not know, I do own my own business. It is kind of a hybrid company. Half of my business or a third of my business is for small business consulting. A second third is for cybersecurity training. So we have CompTIA instructors, CompTIA training, so on and so forth. And then the other third of the business is career services. You're able to see all of my client reviews. We are almost at 100 5-star reviews. Like I said, I've been writing for 6 years now, and I have clients from all different industries, different focuses, entry level, mid level, expert level, whatever. I write for everyone. And like I said, we do have interview preparation services. We do resume writing services. We do LinkedIn renovations. And a lot of my clients will tell you, them working with me is not just a one and done. I've still been in touch with clients that I've had years ago. Just because I try to build that relationship and I let them know like, hey, I'm here from start to finish. If you guys ever need anything, they know that they can contact me. So I like to think that I do a pretty good job. But yes, so that is my contact information. Next week, we are going over summaries and core competencies, and I will be showing you guys my formula for writing a powerful summary and also how to write your core competency / skills section. Just to give you a heads up tip, I always place core competency / skills right under the professional summary, especially in technical positions. Even non-technical positions, I do that as well. You want to make sure you're highlighting specific tools, technologies, proficiencies, blah, 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 that you have, especially for those of you that are in cybersecurity or pursuing cybersecurity positions. As we know, a lot of those job descriptions directly relate or directly ask for certifications, proficiency in different tools. So you want to make sure that that's highlighted and available early on in the resume review. So just a tidbit, just a piece of advice. Like I said, we'll be going over those summaries and core competencies. That was all today. Today was an introduction